The Wounded Blues show plenty of courage in the West as they keep their season alive. The Hawks edge closer to locking in a final spot as the Dockers' flag mantle dreams continue to slip away. Plus the Bulldogs' September wildcard. So much to unpack from the penultimate round of the season. This is Access All Areas thanks to Crypto.com. Great to have your company on this Monday. Damien Barrett and Matthew Lloyd are with me. Gents, one round to go in this season. It's all going down to the wire.
Yeah, and a few teams have blown up their chances, haven't they, Nat? Fremantle included in that,
Yes.
And Collingwood almost cannot make it.
Yeah, we'll get to them in a moment. But Lloydie, we should start with Carlton because they are back in the top 8 and a pretty gutsy win given they had 6 changes to their side and now their destiny is in their own hands.
Yeah, spot on. That destiny in their own hands is what you want going into round 24. And if the Western Bulldogs, Hawthorn and Carlton win, well then it means the last game becomes a dead rubber for Fremantle, which so Fremantle need one of those sides to lose.
Not ideal for the AFL and their fixturing and what they want. Let's talk about Patrick Cripps though, because in that game in the West, the skipper was immense, Damo, in particular that first half. Has he got another 3 Brownlow votes just locked away?
Oh, absolutely, Nat. He has to get that on what he did yesterday. And, Nat, that was game number 205 for him yesterday. I would argue it was the best game he's ever played. And I say that knowing he's won a Brownlow already. I say that knowing he's made multiple All-Australian teams and won multiple Carlton Best and Fairest. So I say that in the context, Lloydie, in that they were humiliated last week against Hawthorn. The way they played, they then were smashed with what happened, carnage-wise injury situation. They take a depleted team over there, and there was one man who led the way from go to woe. Yeah,
they're just so lucky to have him as their leader, captain, and he's a good person too. He doesn't get too emotional with the losses. You see, he's angry, you see him, but he doesn't show it. He's not demonstrative, but full credit to he and Michael Voss for the way they've galvanised that team to go over there and play the way they did.
It's the response that they needed. No Charlie Curnow, no Harry Mackay, and Brody Kemp gets swung forward and somehow, Lloydie, he kicks 4 goals.
And he played on McGovern, so McGovern had no influence and he kicks 4 himself. So I was just talking to Cal Toomey and Riley Beveridge about him and they said he did this as a junior. His best Vic Championship game was as a forward where he kicked 4 goals. So he looked natural down there. So that came across in his performance yesterday.
Only 2 matches prior to that performance yesterday in 41 games, Lordo. The way Carlton moved the ball and got it to him, and he played a key role in that, in the negating efforts he had on McGovern. Is there anything you saw yesterday that can be replicated and templated when the 2 big Coleman medalists come back in Mackay and Curnow?
Well, I think I like what Kemp did. I've been worried about him as a backman. So could he be the third tall they've been crying out for to break up the Mackay and Curnow? They go to them too often. But again, West Coast was so bad. They were appalling. Even their coach said they didn't even show up. That's how bad they were. So against St Kilda, we'll see whether these young kids, there's no surprise factor. It'll be a big challenge for them to win against the Saints next week.
Time to talk about those Hawks. They've won 10 of their last 12. They move into 7th on the ladder. It was against Richmond, but 50 points up at quarter time. And it was set up, Lloydie, through the work of Jai Newcombe and James Worpel in the middle.
One of the big questions I had earlier in the year was what's happened to Jai Newcombe? Like the first 5 rounds, I was like, what's happened to this guy? Like, why has he dropped away? Because he was a revelation. Even James Worpel, was a best and fairest winner, but he's been questioned over the last few years. Is he just not good enough ball user? Does he just hack the footy? So the 2 of them, between them, they had 26 score involvements, 16 inside 50s, 13 clearances, and they just took the game away from Richmond early in the match.
Was the answer to that question you just posed, Lord, about Newcombe as simple as 2 words in Will Day? I say that because he missed the start of the season. He then came back in and that was when they got on the roll. And unfortunately for Will Day too, before you answer that question, he's now out for some weeks. We don't believe it's a broken collarbone. No. Josh Gablich reporting not broken last night, but he's going to miss some time, which will impact.
And Connor Nash has become a fantastic player for the Hawks as well. So he's just got better and better. So, I think early in the year, Will Day, they missed him, but I think they can get by and win a final or 2 without Will Day.
Yeah, they're probably better placed to cover his loss. Now, what about the forward line though, Lloydie? Because when you look at it, it's kind of unpredictable without Mitch Lewis there. They've got so many options.
Well, we're seeing teams go really well without their big guns. So we've seen Tom Hawkins go out. It hasn't really affected Geelong. We've seen Max King go out. It has been fine for them. And even yesterday, I think some of the Carlton players probably enjoyed the fact that the ball comes through other players when they're not there. And this is what's special about Hawthorn. You know, Jack Gunston's back in great form, Cal Shadir, and I just wanted to show the forward line and the goals that are kicked. There's no 60-goal kicker there. There's no but the reliance on Jesse Hogan's becoming a bit too much, as well as the Giants are going. Whereas this forward line, it's just so unpredictable and so dynamic. It's a good thing to go into finals with.
Well, on Saturday afternoon, it was the Pies who stunned the Lions at the MCG, and Brisbane giving up another three-quarter time lead to lose a game. The Pies, Damo, can still mathematically make finals, but it's going to be very, very unlikely.
I don't know what maths you do, Nat.
Yeah,
not the maths I do.
Terrible.
No. I mean,
it's still possible.
They could win by 15 goals and have the other three teams lose and still not make it. So that's just why it makes a waste what Nick Dacos did on the weekend.
I know. Let's talk about him because he is our Crypto.com bold play. And he was phenomenal in that second term, and he's a real Brownlow chance as well. We spoke about Paddy Cripps, but this guy here and what he's doing is incredible.
I can't see why he won't be on that leaderboard come the final round, as he was last year, and he missed the final 4 matches, as we know last year. But what he did in the second quarter, which, again, to what Paddy Cripps did for the Blues, it was as good as what he's ever done for the Collingwood team as well in his 3 seasons inside the AFL. But I think, unfortunately for him and the club, it may come to a waste.
Lloydie, is it a concern of yours that they rely on someone like a Nick Dacos to really stand up? You look at the Pies going into next year, they're going to have 9 players who are 30 years or older. Are you concerned about the makeup of that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether they make the finals next year either, Collingwood. That's where I'm concerned about them. I think Jordan De Goey needs a pre-season of his life to come and support Nick Dacos. Does he work hard enough? Josh Dacos hasn't been as good this year, so they're 2 players in particular that need to help. But I think Darcy Cameron's been massive for Collingwood, but aside from that, I don't think too many others have enhanced their reputation aside from Nick Dacos and Darcy Cameron.
You forecast this slide earlier than anyone else, Lordo. You went early with it, the possibility of the reigning premier not making finals, so it actually hasn't come as a surprise to you.
No, I think lack of hunger and the age demographic of the list does concern me.
So the Brisbane Lions had a real opportunity, Lloydie, to cement a top 4 spot. They let that slip, and really, when you look at it, it's an inaccuracy in front of goal for a second week in a row that cost them.
For sure, Nat. I haven't seen a side blow games in the way Brisbane do over the last 4 or 5 years with inaccuracy. And Lee Matthews, speaking on 3AW on Friday night, 20 hours before their game was to take place, had this to say.
I'm really interested in the expected score thing that's in footy now. In other words, it's what if you kicked average accuracy, this would be your score, right? Because I reckon accuracy wins and loses that many games. Bottom line is just taking your shots better than the opposition on any given day. It's cost the Lions 3 or 4 games this year.
Well, maybe it's 4 or 5 games now, or it is 4 or 5 games after what they did in the third quarter. They should have been up by 30 points. So again, you just got to kick that, Joey. You just got to pop that over, and that brings trust between you and your teammates. Because what happens is, if you don't give it, the next player says, well, why should I give it back to you? And there's been a bit of that about the Brisbane Lions. These are just bad misses. So, again, you've just got to kick that. Bailey, not sure what's happened to him. He hasn't had a great year. Cameron Rayner, if you want to be the player you hope to be, that just has to be kicked. Look at the scoreline. Should be smacked.
What should he do here, Lotto, instead of taking a shot?
I didn't like the lead. So, in terms of that one, I just think it was a mistake by the player. But then Ashcroft. So, you see the young fella, number 1, Loman, sorry. Yep. Loman doesn't give it. And then moments later, Ashcroft doesn't give it back to him. Yep. So there was just too much of that sets in at the Brisbane Lions. They should have been up by 30 points at 3/4 time, blown top 4, and I think they've blown their premiership chances. Yeah,
it's really disappointing from Chris Fagan's point of view. Let's talk about Port Adelaide, their 15th win of the season. It came in a showdown, but the big story, Damo, was Dan Houston. He's been sent straight to the tribunal for this one, and I hate watching that vision, that bump on Isaac Rankin. It was horrible.
It was, and it's hard to watch because he does instantly have that concussion moment, which the AFL now loads, and is the reason that Dan Houston's case will go through the tribunal system, be flushed through there, maybe even go through an appeals tribunal as well. We're looking at an absolute bare minimum of 3 weeks, and it may be as extreme as 6.
So he's played his last game, do you think, for Port Adelaide?
Well, he's contracted, as we know, but he does want to return to Victoria. So you factor all that in, and it's unlikely right now to see him playing again this season. Now, there's a scenario where he could, if they finish double chance and either lose their first final and still keep going, that could increase his chances. But this is how important he's become to this team, Nat and Lordo. I mean, they're elite numbers, and he's already an All-Australian, and maybe he's mounting a case again for this year, but he's not going to be seen again in a home-and-away sense, at least.
And that's the reason they're asking for 2 first-rounders, Port Adelaide, if they lose him, because he's just so important. So, again, what a massive loss on the eve of the final series.
The Dogs beat North Melbourne by 96 points. It was an absolute shellacking, but Sam Darcy, what an outstanding performance. And Lloydie, I just feel like he could be anything, and in finals, he could be that wild card that the Dogs need.
Yeah, it'd be huge if he could do this against, in a big final. He's only going to get better and better. Like, to move the way he moves for someone that big is unbelievable. So I questioned his kicking technique. He can do a bit of work on that over the offset. It's not the worst, but he can work on that to make the most of his chances, because I think if you're 210 centimetres, can move like him, it's a defender's nightmare. And I think he's probably the hottest prospect in the game. Moving into 2025.
I'd even argue he's arguably that right
Already,
now.
yeah.
I mean, we talk about the future being bright for him. The future right now, with 4 weeks of finals about to present itself for the Western Bulldogs, he may emerge from that as already that person.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him on the big stage. Someone else who's going to perform on the big stage is Jesse Hogan, and the Giants have tightened their grip on a top 4 spot with a win over Fremantle. But Hogan, Lloydie, he's now 10 goals clear when it comes to the Coleman medal. And you just look at his story. It's such an incredible one. But what has impressed you most about him?
Well, when he was 17, my brother Brad was the list manager at Fremantle. I remember asking him, I said, what's this Jesse Hogan like? He's going to go the number 1 17-year-old in the country. And they said, we've never seen someone that big have the aerobic capacity of Jesse Hogan. So it was really interested me. And then watching him over the weekend and this year, he gets so many other players involved. Like, he just doesn't kick goals. He involves so many others. And this goal here, he's in the centre of the ground and he runs another 60, 70 metres and burns off his opponents. They had no answer for him, Brennan Cox and Draper, over the weekend.
Yeah, so he got 2 goals from 50-metre penalties. So undisciplined from Fremantle. They've now lost 3 games in a row. They were 3rd on the ladder. They've slipped to 9th. Their finals hopes hang by a very, very small thread. And this was their coach, Justin Longmuir, after the game.
I mean, you can't sit back and look at our footy the last 3 weeks and say, well, we haven't had a crack. Like, the message to the players after the game was proud of their efforts. Because, you come away from home, play a top 4 side after 2 narrow losses, and sometimes you can get caught up in the outcomes and the ladder and scoreboard. And I just thought we stuck at it all day today and competed our backsides off. And yeah, you lose a game through not taking as many opportunities as the opposition. Well, then, you hold your heads pretty high.
I understand there's a public presentation a coach will make after that harrowing loss in the context of where they were at, but I also get there's a private one, and I hope the private one is different, because I feel that's too accepting, Lotto. I know that they've got reasons, Josh Tracy being out, Darcy being out, also Pearce, the captain, being out. They're major problems for them, but to lose to Essendon 3 weeks ago and then to let Geelong beat them at home last week and then to have that as a reaction to, again, another match they could have won against GWS, I feel it's going to be a major storyline if they are to not make the finals right now. And I think that attitude is part of their problem.
Top 4 are missing the finals in the space of 3 weeks. So, yeah, devastating for the Fremantle Dockers.
And you see other clubs too, like Sam Mitchell and Hawthorn, come out really strongly in press conferences, and the team responds. Maybe that's something that Fremantle needed to look at.
Again, I just want to back over that. Those 3 players they're missing are key players.
They are.
But they're not the reasons they've lost those 3 matches.
Geelong coughed up a 33-point halftime lead, and they missed a chance to sew up a top 4 spot. They should still get that done, but the Saints were a different side in the second half, and they played fast footy, and Lloydie, they just opened up the Cats' defence.
Yeah, look at that stat. So they've gone from 13th to 2nd in terms of scores per entry. So that was a real problem for them. That they just could get it in there, but they just couldn't score. And so I just wonder, with Tom Stewart out of that defence, whether they can be opened up. The midfield is a problem, so that's why Tom has to be in there. They're trying to break the tag for Tom Stewart. But they are questionable. Geelong, yes, they can have some good games, but I don't think they're good enough to win 3 finals to win a premiership with the way they're playing. The midfield isn't strong enough. So it was a bad loss, and it's a bit too slow, one pace.
Damo, are you still drinking their Kool-Aid?
Oh, well, no, they've finished at this stage 5th in a season which is wide open, and I wouldn't put it beyond them. I mean, I get the concerns, but another club would have not made the finals under the same outlook. Just on the Saints too, there's a comfort that I don't buy into when a club transforms itself after the season is dead. And while I've liked what they've done in that timeline you've just showed, Lordo, I don't read too much into it because they weren't prepared to play that way when the season was alive.
Back to Friday night, and the Swans won their 2nd game in a row. They're going to hang on to that minor premiership at the moment. Have they got their mojo back? Is it finally back? Can we say that now, Lloydie?
Well, in the first half, it was 36 entries to 18 the Bombers' way. So it was a really poor first half by the Swans. The only thing that kept them in it was their defence. But after half-time, I loved the pressure ramped up, their ball movement. They got a bit more dynamic. They were willing to take a few more risks. And it was a very, very impressive second half, albeit against the Bombers' side who's struggling. So they'll play Geelong most likely in the first final at the SCG, potentially for a path through to the preliminary final. So they're still in a wonderful position to win this premiership, but they're still not quite there. But it was a very good second half.
Do you have them being the team to beat, Damo?
On the season we've seen, yeah, I do. And had Brisbane won one of the past two matches, I might have had them as the team to beat. But you can only deal with what's in front of you, and they've managed to get through that lull that they had with it lasted 7 weeks.
Time now for quick hands. Lloydie, my first ones to you. Are Adelaide the ultimate tease?
Yes, they are, Nat. Like, belt the Bulldogs and then couldn't stand up in the last quarter against a showdown. They'd be the biggest disappointment of the season. Damo, should Dyson Heppel have been given a farewell game?
I wasn't as big on this as you were. I know you were really keen he should have got one. I felt the selection was based upon integrity. I get the emotion attached to it, and there was serious emotion there. We were there at the game, as you were, and there was that type of feel to it. But I didn't mind it. I get why others had an issue with him not being selected. Nat, over to you. Did West Coast performance end any chance of Jared Schofield getting the top job?
No, I think you just put a line through that one. It's an aberration, and look to see how they respond against the Cats in the final round. Lloydie, Petrarca, Oliver, Viney, rate them in terms of retention priority for the Ds.
Can't lose Petrarca, can't lose Viney, but I'd be more than happy for Oliver to be lost at the Demons. He needs a pre-season of his life. Still can't trust him.
Yep.
One to you, Damo. Should Jack Lukosius look for a fresh start next year?
No, I reckon work through it. Persevere. Do some old school, roll the sleeves up and try and make yourself better at the club you're at and have got a contract to play for. So I think it's too easy to be dropped and then say I want a new home. And I think that's the way it might head. But no, work through it. Hey, Nat, was this the best goal ever on debut?
I think you're talking about Ashton Moyer.
I am.
And what a debut. We've been waiting for it. This has to be the best goal I've seen on debut. Look at that. Out of the
Pretty
air.
good.
That was amazing.
He's come at it in mid-air to then kick it over his shoulder.
That's ridiculous.
It's a good goal. It's a good goal, but I don't think it is the best.
Oh, then what is?
This one, I think. So this is...
Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness.
He took to the last quarter. That was 20 seconds in. That you got to do it when the game's on the line. I don't think he did it in junk time.
Sorry, did you just bring out a VHS from home and bring it into the office?
1995. 1995.
25.
Was that your first kick also?
First kick, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's part of that club. Look, he's very happy with himself. We're not going to be too happy with ourselves when we look at the tipping. There we go. I think, Damo, you've got this sold. It's all sewn up. Oh, come on. We're like Collingwood, barely hanging on. We're going to need a massive turnaround. All right, that is all we have time for on Access All Areas this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next Monday.
Want to get all the latest footy news in one hit? From injuries to breaking news, the latest from the coaches, the Footy Feed team has you covered. Watch it now on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app or wherever you get your podcasts.